Now here's a fun question. Can we actually eat our way out of a climate crisis? There are some dire predictions about our environment and climate change, but there's also a lot of hope. We can help through composting, regenerative farming, and more. So we're celebrating the environment and sustainability on this edition of Connected Colorado. I'm Wendy Brockman at McCauley Family Farm in Longmont, whose mission is to heal people and the planet through delicious food. More on that in a minute, but first, a program in Wheat Ridge has kids outside planting trees.
We are the Institute for Environmental Solutions. We find scientific solutions to environmental problems. This is the 2020 Nature Play Connections project.
We are planting trees to just help out the environment.
This project really focuses on getting Color Strand Elementary students out in order to do some phenomenal planting.
This project is a long time in the making. This was supposed to have happened back in the spring, but because of COVID, everything was postponed.
We've been doing workshops outside so that the kids can social distance and stay safe. And then our planting days have been absolutely incredible. We've had great weather, lots of success, lots of enthusiasm.
Plants, trees, they keep us alive, they keep us breathing. I get to celebrate with all of my friends and people and plant trees.
We're going to be doing a whole bunch of planting on Color Strand property so that as they continue to move through the school year, not only do they get to see the amazing plants that they planted, but they get to watch them grow.
So what we do is we dig out some hole and then we put the water in, and then before we put the plant, then we squeeze the plant, then we put the plant in, then we cover it with compost and then some dirt on top, and then you get the mulch, and then you put water inside.
The funnest part about this is planting the trees and stuff, you know, just helping out, and just like the planting I love because trees give us oxygen and we can't live without trees.
So now the kids have participated in a virtual workshop and an outdoor classroom workshop, and we've had 2 planting days. The kids now get to come out onto their own property on their school grounds and make sure that these plants stay really happy and healthy. So they'll be helping to water throughout the rest of the year. And they get to watch these grow, which is something they just haven't been able to do if they're planting in the green belt.
I just love seeing the kids get excited about nature. So when they're out and they're learning about bees, or they're learning about pollinators, or they're learning about plants, I feel that any kind of hands-on outdoor activity is something that children are much more likely to remember.
This is important because it helps get kids engaged in nature, it helps kids get involved in the environment and involved in their community.
3, 2, 1.
So this project is really fun because it's exciting seeing how excited the kids are about all the plants, and the kids get really excited, they get really into it. So I just really enjoy seeing how much the kids are into improving their environment and into improving their community.
All right, great to see kids getting out there young and planting trees. You know, earlier we asked you if it was possible to eat your way out of the climate crisis. Well, we're going to find out. Joining me now is Marcus McCauley from McCauley Family Farm in Longmont and Phil Taylor with Mad Agriculture based out of Boulder. Hi guys, thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we know about the farm to table concept. We're going to talk table to farm concept. What is this?
Yeah, so the table to farm concept is sort of the fuller picture of the farm to table movement. We know about the farm to table movement because we often find us wanting to connect with where our food comes from. It brings story, connection to the land, and the farmers. And what we realized is the idea and the story stops once it gets to the restaurant. However, that's really only half the story. The other part of the story is that once at the restaurant, there's actually a full loop to close. And the table to farm movement is about the consumers, the eaters, the people that love the land and place, then to reconnect with the land in a different way by not only sourcing, but giving back to the places they depend on.
Okay.
So
we've got a circle.
We've got a circle.
Okay. So what is regenerative farming? Because this is what is the future. This is what you're doing here. Tell us what that is.
Certainly. Well, I think to really answer that, it's important to look at the context of farming today. Over the last 40 years, 30% of the world's farmland has gone out of production because of modern agriculture. So regenerative farming endeavors to reverse that trend. Yeah, I mean, I look at it, for me, it's about building a functioning farm ecosystem. So utilizing the principles of ecology to farm, to feed people. Ecosystems that are functioning have lots of characteristics that are really beneficial. Agriculture tends to break these systems, but we can build systems that are like natural ecologies, that are anti-fragile, that are resilient, that are self-healing, that are diverse. Our farm is a place where all of these different elements play a role. We have ruminants, or animals that graze on grass. We have perennials like these trees, annual crops, insects, fungi, birds, humans, all playing a role together in their own way create something more than the sum of the parts.
In regenerative farming, it's about giving more than you take. A lot of the agriculture that has expanded across the states benefited from the natural resources that were here. So imagine the Great Prairie, which we're just standing on the edge on. You know, that was full of rich carbon and soil and nutrients and plant life. And we got our plows and we tilled it up, we turned it over, and we used all those nutrients to grow all of the wheat, the corn, the sugar beets. Everything that we currently subsist on came by extracting what was there, taking what was there, and that's got us to a point where that's no longer sustainable, it's no longer healthy, and we've got to figure out ways to reinvest in the land and restore the land. Otherwise, we're going to face a lot of different types of crises, probably the biggest being the climate crisis.
So the reason behind this is a very important one.
You know, when you see farming that is regenerative versus farming that's not, the difference is clear, is stark. You know, and I want to farm in a way that it gives my son a better chance to farm this land. Not too far from here, just next door, is land that's in a lot worse shape, and that's what we're really working with over there is kind of ground zero, you know, and trying to address a long period of time of farming in a way that hasn't been regenerative.
Well, let's take a look at that, at the starting point. Mm-hmm. So now we've moved over towards the western part of the property, and you can see how much different the ground is. Very different soil that you guys are starting with. How is it different?
The land that we're on right now is owned by the City of Boulder as a part of their open space program. And because it's been mismanaged, it's not even leasable to a farmer to use. And so we're working with the City of Boulder, Restore Colorado, and Marcus McCauley to put some love back into this land to really create an ecosystem here that produces healthy food and restores the landscape. And in the process of that restoration, solves the climate crisis. Grass actually takes carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and it pumps it through its roots to feed the microbial life underneath the soil. And as it does that, it actually builds up soil carbon and solves the climate crisis. And this is very much like what's happening in the Dust Bowl because of mismanagement with animals. They graze too intensively here, were not grazed responsibly, and in a moment you can have a wind event like we have in the early spring, just take this soil and blow it into the atmosphere. And if we were to walk just 30 feet this way, there'd be feet of topsoil against the fence posts. And even if you look at the soil here, I mean, it's hard to put your fingers into it, but most topsoil it looks brown, holds water. This is full of rocks. You know, what I'm looking at here is actually like 8 inches underneath normal soil. It all blew off. And this soil is crumbly, it's compacted, there's not a lot of living roots in it. You know, it smells more like minerals than organic matter. And so it's not like putting your hands into a rich garden.
Is there a way people can get involved?
There's a new program called Restore Colorado, where we have a range of businesses across Colorado who are giving 1% of their bill to create essentially a pot of money that can help farmers reinvest in the land and advance their regenerative practices. It takes a lot of money to restore a place that's been so heavily degraded. The time, the labor, the seeds, the compost, the water, it's thousands of dollars. And so to take a place like this, which is really suffering, and reinvest in it, it takes all of those resources. And Restore Colorado is a program where we're working with Marcus to provide some funds, resources, some technical assistance to really help him manage this land as best as possible.
A study from Ohio State University basically says that regenerative farming could end the climate crisis. Is that optimistic or realistic?
I think we have yet to really see. It's going to depend on how courageous we are as humans to build agro ecosystems that produce food that are close to what nature does. And It could be 5%, it could be 100%. And I think it's really on us to figure out how. We're not going to know unless we start somewhere. And for me, this is ground zero with Marcus McCauley and the work we've done. And this is where we have to start to find out.
Well, Phil, it's exciting because it feels like we're standing in the future. It's going to be amazing to see what happens to this space and other farms in the future. So your expertise has been wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Marcus, we're going to go check out your sheep and see what a difference good soil can make.
Yeah,
Let's do it. So now on this part of the property, we're seeing more what the end result is. What's the difference between there and here?
Well, here you have grassland, functioning pasture. You have grasses that are growing and animals that can graze it. Here you have a place where birds and insects and snakes and frogs and amphibians and all kinds of wildlife can thrive. And we can also feed our community from this land.
And why does this excite you?
This excites me because it shows what's possible. To me, it shows like what happens with good land stewardship and good community relating with each other so that we can, feed our families.
Amazing. Thank you for having us here today.
Yeah,
Just gorgeous. A few years ago, we introduced you to a great restaurant, Annette, at Stanley Marketplace in Aurora. They are one of the sponsors of Restore Colorado and regenerative farming. So we wanted to take another look.
I want people to feel intrigued and taste familiar things, but in a different way. But I also think the dining experience, sometimes it can be overshadowed by crazy presentation and plating and a lot of things going on. I really want the beverage to come through, the wine to come through, the conversation, and the food to be there and create part of that experience. That's what I want them to take away from it, the atmosphere, what they were feeling, the people they were with, and they got to eat great food. I'm Caroline Glover, and I am the owner and chef of Annette at Stanley Marketplace. When I think back to my childhood, my mom always cooked. She was always in the kitchen. We always ate dinner together. There's a lot of really great memories surrounding the kitchen. My great aunt Annette, she was a really special person. She kind of just did what she wanted and, spoke her mind. And it really taught me that you can stand up for what you want and what you believe in, no matter what situation you're in. I always think of her during Thanksgiving and times where we would drink and eat and have a good time, so it just felt right. So scratch to table, we make the majority of everything in-house, and that's something that's not being done everywhere, and I think you can taste the difference. That's why our menu's smaller, just because every single dish does take a lot of preparation. When we start with really nice ingredients, we really get to showcase that ingredient rather than a bunch of other things around it. I definitely think you leave feeling good after eating here, but we definitely use the good stuff, butter and salt and cheese and fat, but starting with really good product, you end up just not feeling really weighted down. A lot of inspiration comes from kind of what is in seasonally, and I went to the farmer's market this morning and seeing all the new produce and seeing them next to each other, I feel like that's how we change dishes a lot. You go and taste it and you're like, oh, like this makes sense. This is what I want to do. This is what's fresh right now. This is what's growing next to it.
24 and another 5.
And then 12 corn.
29 and 6.
And that's kind of how dishes, for me, come together.
I have it all.
We're located within a big marketplace, so there's fluorescent lights, there's a lot going on. I wanted to create a coziness coming into the space. You're coming in kind of through a dark hallway, and then it's kind of like you found Annette. Really the thesis of the whole restaurant is how we eat. In America, it's kind of all over the place. Certain families go out to eat every single night, certain families go drive-through, and then I grew up in a family where it was super important to all sit down and look at each other and engage, and I'm trying to recreate that in a sense and allow people to feel intimate and be just with their table and get off their phones. We're just trying to, as much as possible, get rid of all the elements from the outside and just really focus on what you're doing here, which is hopefully enjoying a great meal with great company. I want it to just really be about the experience.
Saving the planet can be so delicious. As we heard, there's more than one way to contribute to regenerative farming, and that's composting. That's what they're doing in Pitkin County with their scraps program.
Hi, my name's Kathy Hall, Solid Waste Manager for Pitkin County. Did you know every day in the United States we throw away 150,000 tons of food? But here at Pitkin County, we're doing something about it. Food waste takes up valuable space in our landfills and creates harmful methane, a damaging greenhouse gas. Instead of throwing away food, you can make a difference by participating in Pitkin County's Scraps composting program. This is the landfill's compost operation where we turn your food waste into high-quality compost. We make that compost available back to the community for use in your landscaping and gardens. And it's really good stuff. Food waste haulers bring material to the landfill where it is mixed into piles with wood chips, grass, and leaves. The material is broken down by microorganisms, leaving behind a nutrient-rich compost that we sell to the public in bags or in bulk. Here's how you can help us keep food waste out of the landfill and do your part to protect the environment. So now we're back in the kitchen, and I'm going to talk about what you can and cannot compost. Any food matter can go into your compost bin. Your day-old vegetables that got a little slimy you didn't use, into the compost bin. Certain plates, disposable plates and serveware, can compost. You want to look for the wheatgrass plates or the palm leaf plates, nothing with the shiny coating. The wood forks and the spoons, those are best to compost as well. What can't be composted is these common plates you find in the grocery store. They're shiny surface, they have a microplastic coating that does not compost. Same with the single-use plastic serveware. Both of these are trash. Plastic straws, a big no-no in the compost, and recycling. These are also trash, as well as your plastic cups. Good recyclable items are the aluminum foils and the aluminum cans. Those going right into the recycling. Just remember, no inorganics, no metals, no plastics, no glass. None of that can go into the compost. It would ruin the piles. So if you're ready to get started composting at home, you can come up to the landfill to pick up your free countertop compostable collection bin or 6.5 gallon bucket for free. You can also bring the materials directly up to the landfill and drop off for composting for free, or you can contract with a curbside service. And another thing Pitkin County offers are magnets and stickers that can go on your fridge or your buckets or your trash cans to help you know what's compostable and what's not. So when you're shopping, it's important to look for items that are compostable. Buy produce loose in your own bags that can be reused. Shop in the bulk aisle. Look for eggs in the paper cartons instead of the plastic or the styrofoam cartons. You'll want to avoid single-use items that can't be composted or recycled and that just end up in the trash. So if you're ready to get started composting at home, you can come up to the landfill to pick up your free countertop compostable collection bin or 6.5 gallon bucket for free. You can also bring the materials directly up to the landfill and drop off for composting for free, or you can contract with a curbside service. When you make the effort not to throw your food waste in the garbage, you're doing your part to help us save the life of the landfill, help curb greenhouse gas, and let us turn your food into compost that goes back into the community yards and gardens. It's a win-win proposition. Let's do this.
We are going to learn how you can do your own composting coming up. In Broomfield, they are committed to going green, but they need some community input.
What do you want Broomfield's sustainable future to look like? Last summer, City Council passed 2 ambitious sustainability goals, including a 90% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050 and being zero waste by 2035. Now we need your help in deciding which policies and programs we should adopt in order to achieve those goals. We need to hear from you on such topics as recycling and composting, renewable energy, energy efficiency, electric vehicles, transportation, and cycling. How should our community go green? Share your thoughts and vision for a sustainable future this summer during the greenhouse gas reduction and zero waste planning process. Everyone is invited to attend in-person and virtual listening sessions to learn how you can help us create a more sustainable Broomfield. Visit broomfieldvoice.com/sustainability to learn more, engage online, and view dates and details for virtual and in-person listening sessions and workshops.
You can still get your comments in after summer. So we've talked about farm to table and table to farm. Now how about fairway to table?
From the tee box, Spring Hill Golf Course might seem like a confidence builder. This executive course is the shortest Aurora Golf has to offer.
For a par 64 executive course, people think it's 5,000 yards means easy, and it's actually very difficult. The greens are very slopey, and if you get on the wrong side and the greens are fast, you're gonna have a tough time putting.
But while it might not be forgiving, there is a major takeaway for the players.
One of our guys out here plants vegetables all over the place.
Yeah, you can play around at Spring Hill and toss a few veggies in your bag.
Cantaloupe.
Thanks to Mark Hermanson.
And these are the pumpkins.
Hermanson started planting vegetables throughout the course 3 decades ago.
If it's ready to pick, we don't care. We let you take.
Beets and carrots and squash. This year we're doing watermelon and cantaloupe.
The hidden gems have even garnered a cult following.
Gotten to the point where some of the regulars will actually ask in spring where I'm going to be planting certain things, so they know where to look and what to pick, when to pick.
Between COVID-19 and the weather, this year has been a bit tricky to get things started, but keep an eye out.
So I don't know even how much it's going to produce this year, but I would give it a try and see what happens.
You might just find a hole-in-one where you least expect it.
Almost 50% of what Denver residents put in the trash is material that could have been composted. The city offers a curbside composting program for a small fee. But if your city or county doesn't offer one, here's how to do it yourself.
Anyone can compost. If you have a spot of dirt that's 3 feet by 3 feet, you can pretty much compost.
Compost is decomposed organic material. It's material that was once alive, that's undergone a microbial process with bacteria and fungi to break down or decompose and create nature's healthiest soil amendment. My name is Judy Elliott, and we are at the Denver Master Compost site, our Grove composting site. I am a lead trainer for the Denver Master Composter program.
My name is Rector Myers, and I'm a Denver Master Composter.
My name's Kira Gregory. I'm a Denver Master Composter.
It's really important that we chop material up into 1 to 2 inch pieces. The small pieces make it easier for the microorganisms to decompose it. We're reducing the particle size, increasing the surface area. The material that we're using right now, this is end of season. Zucchini over there to some flowers to some trumpet vine with the stems. The little branches. It's tough, woodier material. That's called carbon material. It gives structure. It's like a strong backbone to the pile. The green material, the leaves, the zucchini, are nitrogen material, and that's a source of amino acids. That's going to make the pile heat up. One of our master composters is pulling apart some alfalfa, which is really rich in nitrogen, and we have some straw, which is a source of carbon. So we're building a pile right here on the ground. One of the richest sources of fall material for compost, which are leaves. So we're adding not only carbon and nitrogen, but we're adding different textures to the pile. So 4 to 6 inches of chopped mixed texture, mixed brown material, 2 to 3 inches of chopped mixed green material. I'm just going to get a handful or so of this compost, really rich in microorganisms. We're going to add that. This is already decomposed. It's going to add a rich bacterial culture to this. And then we're going to mix all that together. You want to water these first layers until they feel like a wrung out sponge. This is treasure. We started this pile in June. We've covered it with black plastic to keep out excess wind and keep the moisture in. Very important. We're going to show you what pretty much finished compost looks like. And then we're going to pull out some of that compost before we add so we can layer it with our new material. Then we're going to start adding some of our fresh material. This is a mix of carbon and nitrogen. Before we water it, we are going to mix it. And then we're going to take our hose and we're going to slowly water it. You can see we're not going really too heavy or anything like that. We want that water to feel like a wrung out sponge. And we're going to go ahead and add some more green and brown material, mixed, pre-chopped up, many different textures. When we mix it the second time, we're just opening up new sites for decomposition. And then we're watering it again until it feels like a wrung out sponge in order to get the process started again. And this pile will break down very quickly. Lots of green material. So the green material with more water is going to make the pile heat up, and the brown stems are going to give it structure. Ideally, when we build a compost pile, we want it to be a minimum of a cubic yard in volume. We don't have that now. We're starting with what we have. And as you can see, this is not any high-tech bin. This is cement blocks. It has air that's allowed on the side. We're putting all the material in, and we're moving it more towards the back to make this bin as high as possible. Once a week, we would take off the plastic cover of this pile, pull material out, and flip it over so that we're pulling material in from the sides to the middle and flipping it top to bottom, giving our bacteria and fungi new areas to eat. At that time, we can dig in small quantities of non-meat food scraps. So we're going to finish up the process, covering it with plastic. Again, we have the holes at the side for aeration. And we're just going to keep the plastic down with some rocks. Very low-tech system. If you're using compost to enrich soil for perennials, you do not need to screen it. What goes through this 1/4-inch hardware cloth is material which is very appropriate for using in a seeding operation when you're planting seeds or your transplants in the spring for vegetables. The closer you are to planting time, the finer the material should be. So there are lots of containers that are on the market for composting, but we really don't recommend any of them. They're just really basically a place to store your compost or contain it. So whether you choose to use a homemade container, the important thing is the process that the material needs to undergo is exactly the same. Doesn't matter if you use a tumbler or a bin or a free-form pile. To align healthy soils with healthy people through composting, through healthy living. I love that.
The choices we make about food and planting can help save our environment, our soil, our health. Pretty cool. Thanks to McCauley Family Farm for having us and Mad Agriculture. We'll see you next time on Connected Colorado. Really, is it possible to eat our way out of a climate crisis? We're celebrating regenerative farming, composting, and other ways to help our environment and sustainability on the next Connected Colorado.